Hello, hello everyone. I'm so glad to have another live of Mama Tortuga. I'm always trying to bring elements to the conversation that can be useful for all of our families. And today is not an exception. Today we will be talking about a beautiful, beautiful topic very close to my heart, which is music as part of our parenting. And as many of you know, I advocate for cultural arts, every type of art to be part of our everyday life as parents. And music is one of those. I consider music as part of another language that we can give to our children. So I will be inviting our guest today, our friend Giovanna Dominguez. So let's wait for her to join us. Hi, welcome, Giovanna. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you so much for this invitation. I am so honored to be part of it.
I'm so glad we are finally doing this. I was telling everyone that this is a very close to my heart topic. I have always advocated for arts as part of the way we raise our children. And my children, both of my children, have been exposed since they were babies to music. So I'm so glad that we're finally having a chance to have this IG live. We've known each other for many, many years. And I want to share, this is your book. Of course, you can see it
Thank you.
in reflection, but it's a single mother's little book of advice on raising amazing children. So welcome, Giovanna.
Thank you. Thank you. I am honored to be here and happy to share what little bit I can to add to the conversation about the power of music or anything else you want to talk about raising children. Um, should I talk a little bit about my own experiences as a parent and my length as a parent?
Yes, well, that's what I'm very interested in, to hear from you because, from a lot of perspectives, I think, it's very valuable to hear from people who had already done it. And you are one of those persons. You're a lover of music, you're a musician yourself. So can you let us know a little bit about your background, like how music came to your
Changed my
life, and then later on how music, ended up becoming such an important part of your parenting.
Music is the singular most important thing in my life and has been. I was born in Cuba in the 50s, as you can see by my beautiful gray hair. I won a scholarship for piano in the conservatory called Amadeo Roldan in Havana, Cuba when I was 5. I come from a long, long line of musicians um, from Spain, all the way back to Spain. I found out that my great great grandfather was the organist at the Valencia Cathedral in Spain. I found that through a cousin of mine who lives in France. Um, my grandfather, my own grandfather, was a clarinetist and saxophonist in the symphony orchestra in Havana, and we had pianos in the house. He tuned our pianos, actually. My mother, my uncle, my aunt, all were pianists and still are pianists. They're all still alive. Anyway, I just fell in love with the piano, and they detected that the gift, which is this is something that is written into our genes, um, passed on to me. So they they really supported me. My grandfather was with me at every practice when I was a little girl. And unfortunately, when communism and the horrors that followed that took my father away from us, he was jailed as a political prisoner, and my mother and my sisters and myself were exiled So we became exiles, and we came to the United States. I had to leave all of my amazing piano training in the conservatory behind. And as a result, came to Florida, to Miami, and began a completely different life with a single mother, my mother, whom I call the Cuban Queen Victoria, because this woman had such courage. And because of her courage and her example, I don't want to get emotional, but it is the reason and the rope that I held on to in my own journey as a single mother. I have 3 unbelievable daughters, so unbelievable that honestly, for all of you out there, I have to testify that sometimes I don't know how it was that I did it. But thinking back, 48 years, my oldest daughter is going to be 48. If it wasn't because I had that music in me, that powerful medium to hold on to, I don't know what I would have done. That and God. I believe in God, and I think God has been walking this journey with me my entire life. Anyway, when my oldest daughter was born, excuse me, I was determined that she would have the most amazing life that I could possibly give her. And mind you, I was a little girl myself. I was 15 years old when I got pregnant with my daughter. And she has so far exceeded my expectations that I cannot believe she is my child. It's hard to believe she is my child. But once I decided to write this little book, what I did after my 3 daughters were born, after I had raised all 3 of them, I said to myself, I have to remember and put down what it was that I did that made a difference, that I think made the difference, that built these children. Because how else could these children turned out the way they did by accident? And it is no accident. I assure you that children are magnificent because of what ingredients and what consistency and what love and what we do to fill them up inside. And one of the most important things in the life of every child should be music. Music in the home. Music is not only the most powerful medium in our life, that if we just stop to think about what every day consists, in every human event, there is music. There are no weddings without music. There are no christenings without music. There are no birthdays without music. There are no barbecues without music. There is music in the songs of the birds. There's no walk in nature that is not filled with the music of the spheres. Music is the essential element that roots us to what it's like to be human. And
it's even inside of us, like I always remember listening to my children's heartbeats when they were inside of me, and I always like connected with them, thinking like the first sound they heard was our heartbeat, or was a human heartbeat. Like, think about it, and our voices and the things that were outside. And bottom line, is something that is so innate to us as human. So you are so right.
Our voices have music. If you listen to one person's voice and another person's voice, children recognize their mother's voice from within, and they're soothed by their mother's voice. If you could go on to the molecular level, actually, our blood running through our veins makes a sound. We have a rhythm that is when we walk, you know, that everything just moves with us and makes music. Whether it's percussive music, which is music, the piano is a percussive instrument after all. It is not, it is not plucked. It is struck like a drum, and that's my instrument, and I prefer it above all other instruments. But uh, my youngest daughter
And
plays.
I have to say that is such a beautiful instrument. My son started with piano since he was little. And I would love for you to share one story, one anecdote that you told me about the limitations of having a piano when you needed to practice, because not everyone can afford having a piano at home. And you told me once that something that you did or your mom did,
Mhm.
that to let you practice your piano, because like you wanted to play but you couldn't have a piano where you live, because it was a big instrument.
Correct. I could. I and my mother too. I took that directly from her because also you needed to be silent. So I actually I painted a keyboard on on a large piece of paper. And believe it or not, playing the piano silently and practicing silently allows you to remember the tones of the piano. You learn tones. You think you don't, but you do. You memorize the sounds of the scales, for instance. All the tones on the piano, on the 88 keys, you can learn to hear them in your head. There's an incredible movie. I don't know if your participants know this movie, but I highly recommend it, and it's a true story. It's called The Pianist. Roman
Oh yes,
Polanski.
I thought it was very
It's
very
a
famous.
powerful, and during one of the scenes where he was in hiding, there was a piano in front of him, but he played it as a ghost. He played it just over the keys because he couldn't make a sound. Well, that is what I envisioned well, we couldn't afford one, number one, and we lived in a little efficiency in North Miami Beach when we first arrived from Cuba, and we had no money for a piano. So when you want music, when you need music, when music feeds your soul, you find a way, and it keeps you going. So,
Yes.
and there
So
have
this
been,
conversation goes to, like I hear around me a lot of times when parents tell me, well, I cannot afford it. And, sadly, it has become like like an impediment so many times for parents to expose their children to instruments or learning an instrument. But I will always say, like there will always be a way to expose children to music.
yes,
And bottom line, right now with the internet, there's so many avenues
yeah,
for teaching children. Like for example, I will say, like even if you don't have like a piano at home, but like I remember before buying one in Craigslist. That's where our house piano came from. We got like a little organette, like an electric piano that I was also used. We got it in a thrift store. And like there are many ways that you can start incorporating instruments, music learning, and like I always encourage parents to say, instead of like we cannot do it because of this, like okay, in which ways we can do it, like in which ways we can use what we have available. And
mhm.
like for example, my daughter plays the violin, and we'll get into it in a few, because one of your daughters is like musician. She plays the viola, so we
And
love
she plays the
wind
violin.
instruments.
Yeah, she
But
plays violin as well. Hmm.
I will always we watched a movie with my daughter once about an orchestra in South America where they couldn't afford instruments. And the maestro, the person who was, creating the orchestra, decided like, why don't we make our own?
Yes,
And they
they
included
were
the
out of
children. Yes, they
the
included
garbage.
the children to make their own instruments with things that were found in the recycling
Yes.
part of the city. They will have to go into the dump, and they ended up making their own instruments that sounded like violins and trumpets and things like that. And I always say, like, like, one more time, one example of you
Hmm.
don't have to buy an expensive instrument. All you want to do and need is expose yourself into music. You will be surprised of the things you can create with
Yeah.
music.
Additionally, nowadays, there are a lot of people who, for one reason or another, no longer need their instruments. And there are so many pianos out there for free. I want your listeners to hear this. All you have to do is look. If you have room for a piano, you can probably get one for either a couple of $100 or sometimes free. You just have to pay for pickup. And there are movers out there who do pro bono work if you can't afford it. You just have to make a few phone calls. And I assure you, you can find an instrument if you have room for it. The same goes with violins and other stringed instruments. There are places like, I think Fiddler Shop is one of them, who reserve some instruments. If you explain your situation, there are places that will help you and help your child, either with a loaner for life, or they will gift you an instrument for your child. You just have to not give up and keep trying until you find your child an instrument, and it can be done. My first piano, I think I bought for $100, and I got two friends to help me pick it up in a pickup truck, and it
Yeah,
was a
that's pretty much the story of a lot of people that we know, because, like, a lot of people just assume that, like, a lot of us that have raised children that play instruments is because we have a lot of money, and I have to assure you,
yeah.
it's not the
It
case.
is not. It is not.
We had done a lot of limitations in other areas of our lives to be able to afford formal music education. And the reason is because I have seen firsthand all the benefits that my children have just by playing an instrument, like, and in your book you say a lot of them, but just on top of my head, like, my children had learned about their self-determination, their self-esteem. Every time they play like a piece, they learn a piece by memory. Like, things that like a lot of kids, perhaps in school, they're not exposed to in daily basis, because everything is about like falling into the following the curriculum and things like that. When you are learning to play a piece of music, when you are trying to do all these things yourself, it creates such an amazing art of like self-satisfaction. Both of my children had experienced it because they had done what they were. And sometimes it's also like teaching them about, like, okay, it's not gonna be easy. Like, some of this music is not an easy, and it's not like you're gifted necessarily, because not everyone that plays an instrument is like, oh my gosh, like a natural at music. Because that's another misconception, by the way. Everyone can learn to play an instrument. Perhaps some instruments are harder than others to manage and to, like, become a virtuoso. But you don't need to become a virtuoso. You don't need, like, you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for
Right.
enriching your
Right.
life.
If you
So,
look at the solo artists, if you Google solo artists, there are a handful or a couple of handful of the real top of the line that are touring. There are very, 20, 30, maybe on any decade, and they shift as they get older. new ones come in. The important thing is to expose new generations to these 1,000 years of music that has been composed for us and that challenges us intellectually and spiritually. Classical music is mathematically just so beautifully put together, like a mathematical, well, music is mathematical. It is perfectly mathematical. It is completely, I mean, I'm not going to go into a theory class in this Instagram, but suffice it to say that the relationship between one note and the next is equal across the entire span of music. So you are learning math when you are learning music. And when you're learning an instrument such as the piano, because every instrument has something challenging about it. Piano challenges you mostly as far as memorization, because you are memorizing, you are playing two hands that are reading two different positions, two different clefs. That is the challenge of the pianist. The challenge for the violinist is intonation, muscle, memory, brain. The muscle and brain connection has to be so precise for you to be able to hit that note without any frets, no markings on the neck of the violin. The same goes for the viola. And this makes your focus, your abilities to focus, your ability to really concentrate on a concept, and elevates you. Elevates you as an intellectual. It elevates your intellect.
Yeah.
People who think that music is just something you hear and enjoy, yes, it does. It moves the soul. But what it brings to children is intellectual development, focus, concentration, mind and body connection like nothing else in this world. There is nothing, and when you are in the moment, when you are playing, you are nowhere else. I am telling you, you're not cooking, you're not listening to something outside, you're not paying attention to something else you did or that you have to do tomorrow, because you will not be able to play. It takes all of you when you're in that in the moment. And when you are young, when you subject your children to this amazing music, because these composers who were uniquely gifted to have created this amazing library of music, these composers left us a legacy that now all we have to do is dedicate ourselves to studying it, and we have everything we need. And I have to say, there are still people born every day, including our little children that we are talking about, who will become the next amazing composer. The composers of film music, film scores, which are some of the most
I was gonna say that, like right now we are like rewatching all the Star Wars saga, and one of our favorite composers is
John Williams.
Like he's amazing. And my daughter, who's only 13, she's like, Mom, like he's amazing. Like, I mean, bottom line, I know you are totally partial to classical music, but I want to say, me as a anthropologist, multiculturalist, I will always say, remember, there's classical music in every culture of the world. Like I have been exposed as well to the classical music Chinese culture and Indian culture. They have their different, completely different system, the same way, very ancient, very, very powerful score music.
Yes, and
I was late to be exposed to it. But they have schools that, of centuries of learning. And what I will always say is, because my hope is that, all the families that are seeing these around the world understand this. Like, it doesn't have to be necessarily classical music. But what we want to say is that there is so much value to the classical musics of every culture that we cannot let that to the side. That we're not saying like don't expose your children to pop music or
Oh, of course
popular
not.
music nowadays, but
Of course not. And they have all Western classical music, which is what I started to talk about. And I made myself some notes so that I can go into exactly that. Is filled with the folklore, the folk music, the hymns, the songs, the spirituals of all the cultures of the world. One of my favorite violin pieces was actually written by an Englishman, Ralph Vaughan Williams, and it's called The Lark Ascending. I actually told my daughter, when I die, I want you to play this for me.
wow.
My youngest daughter. It is an Asian, it is about it has an Asian feel, the whole piece. I recommend it to everyone who is joining us right now. I recommend you to listen to this piece of music, this
Yeah,
violin.
and I want to mention right now for the families that are, looking into knowing a little bit more about like classical music per se, I definitely recommend the podcast of my friend in Spain. This podcast is Alegro Mágico. I had already an interview with her early last year. Alegro Mágico. She does amazing compilations of different topics for classical music for children. And I mean, I have learned so much with her podcast throughout the years. So I just wanted to insert that here because I think it's tying it together. Because I want, for families to start exploring this as an avenue and part of their important role as taking care of our children. This is a gift, the same as languages, the same as STEM, because STEM is becoming such a popular thing. I think music is an extension of either languages and STEM.
It should be STEAM. It should be STEAM. You have to add the art.
It should be STEAM, like with the art. But sadly, this has become such an issue because sadly, arts are not being funded. That is the sad situation in this country. I don't know in other countries how the situation it is,
in other countries, actually in Western Europe at least, the state pays the salaries of the symphonic musicians. They actually have a pension. They actually get paid by the state. They are so well supported. Music is, a lot of Western classical music came from Europe, and as a result, they truly value their music. But what I wanted to share is not only that particular piece of music, the Lark Ascending, that is very Asian feeling, but every composer since the Middle Ages has inserted culture, the music of different cultures. I mean, if you listen to Brahms, he inserted Hungarian music into his themes. The Gypsies of Hungary, Polish music, Chopin, the poet of the piano. It is so different than other music. If you listen to Tchaikovsky, so Russian, he used all of the folks music from Russia and inserted it in his music. Shostakovich, who rebelled against the Stalinist regime, he inserted his frustration with Russian oppression, with the oppression of the Stalinist regime in his music. Edvard Grieg from Norway, his music is filled with Norwegian folk music. Our Gershwin, our Gershwin from here, from the United States, George and Ira Gershwin, his music is filled with African music, African American spirituals, and Yiddish Jewish music in the themes of his music. Aaron Copland, who wrote Appalachian Spring and Rodeo, painted pictures of the West for us. Salón Mexico is one of my favorites of his. Takes you right into Mexico and the dances of the poor people without shoes dancing in the dirt in the salons when they couldn't, pay for admission. He wrote Cuban music. Aaron Copland inserted Cuban music into his symphonic work.
There are so many contemporary
Yes.
composers, and that's another misconception that I found, often. We are reclaiming a lot of this music as well,
Yes.
like as people from this continent. And the one thing that my daughter, was very upset when she started playing the violin. She was like, "Mom, like, how come they're not women composers?"
Oh,
And that's a lie, like there were many women who were
yes.
composers, but they didn't make it to the big venues. But
Well,
right now, a lot of these musicians
well,
are being reclaimed in their histories, and so it's very exciting.
yes.
We cannot rob our children from all of these, because this is I think like this is something that we need to approach from like the scope of this is good for every child. This is something that we can do to every child, period.
Throughout
And that is what bothers me many times when I hear parents like, "Oh, I don't listen to that because it's boring," or "I don't listen to that because it's not my music." And bottom line, what I always say is expose your children to it. Like, if you don't have to like it yourself. Like, it's actually when I started myself, I was an opera lover. I had always been an opera lover. So I had, some knowledge about it. But from knowing something about music to really knowing something about like like really learning how to play an instrument, my daughter knows way more than what I know. Like, she already is playing like different I cannot even remember, like they have those different scales in the violin. Like, I never, I was like, "So you can play that?" And she's like, "Oh yes, you can, go higher to the octaves and go." And I was like, wow, like I have learned so much as a parent just by being exposed to my children learning. And that's something, that many times parents tell me like, "Oh, but I just don't like that." Believe me, many times I didn't want to hear that screeching sound in the violin at the beginning, because it hurt my ears. But now that my daughter is, beyond that point, I'm so thankful that I listened to my daughter, that she really wanted to play that instrument. If it was up to me, I would have loved for her to play the harp, or or maybe the guitar. But listen to your children when they're asking you if they want to learn an instrument, and really never give up, like Giovanna says. Like, there's so many ways that we can find as family to support the music love in our children's lives. So I want to jump to the effects and the ways, like, some practical tips for parents that are right now raising their children, in which you will, recommend on how to incorporate mainly classical music in their lives. Like, we know we can expose them to every type of music, like, since children. But classical music, like, in which ways would you recommend to parents to do this?
Well, the first thing I did, which, believe it or not, when we are sleeping, we are listening. When my daughters were born, all three of them, I was a lover of classical music. And as such, I wanted them to be listening to it. I had a little radio in their room with classical music playing when they slept, softly, you know. And so they were already listening to classical music. I mean, I was listening to it while I was pregnant, but and I was playing while I was pregnant, so they were already listening, but exposed them. And children, invariably, if you put on music and you talk to them about the music while you're listening to the music, you're not just ignoring the children and listening to the music. You're talking to the children about the music, this instrument, that instrument. What do you think that melody is telling us? Because melodies paint pictures in our minds. And we would create stories in the car while we were listening to classical music. We would create stories about what do we think that melody is telling us. And the melodies, as they were written, truly are telling a story. When Rimsky-Korsakov wrote Scheherazade, I mean, if we remember the story of Scheherazade, it's in the Tale of 1,000 Nights, the Arabian Nights. And he was a Russian composer who had never been to Arabia or Persia or Iraq or anywhere in the Middle East, and yet he wrote the most poignant work describing the plight of Scheherazade, who was a beautiful girl. This was the story of a sultan who murdered everyone who came before him. He wanted them to tell them a riddle, to tell them a story. And she told him a story that lasted 1,001 nights because she did not want to die. And at the end of the 1,001 nights, he fell in love with her. And this work of music, this Scheherazade by Rimsky-Korsakov, is so pictorial that if you play it for your children and you just let them hear, you ask them, wow, I hear a shipwreck. I hear them running. I hear them, approaching each other. I hear them embracing. You hear it in the music. So this is the type of thing that I would do with my children. We would listen to Peter and the Wolf, which is an actual story, a Russian folk story set to music. We would listen to Scott Joplin playing the entertainer, or some of the African American spirituals, like by Grant Still or Samuel Coleridge Taylor, who incorporated the suffering and the pain, that African Americans endured especially in this country. And they have the most beautiful spirituals that they sang, I guess, while they worked or while they toiled. Well, these African American composers, many of whom are fantastic and have not been included performed that much because of everything that has gone on in this country.
And I have to include, right now at this moment, it's like, I think it's sad that, we're talking about this, because I think the majority of children being raised at this moment around the world don't know anything about the things that we're talking about. And the issue is that, they are being raised by watching TikTok, by watching YouTube, and what comes out of a lot of the, like the media and the internet these days is like popular music. And I don't have, I'm not going to go into that, because this life is not about, like saying what I feel about, popular music in general. I love music. I have an eclectic love for music. So bottom line, but we need to be very intentional in the way we are exposing children to music, period. And the reason is because if we're going to just let it up to chance of what is playing in the radio or what is, being watched in the internet at this moment, they're not going to have a well-rounded taste of music. And, that's something that I have noticed as, as a parent myself. Both of my kids are becoming teenagers, and they still prefer classical music in their lives because they have been grown, like seeing it perform, seeing it play, seeing other kids their same age playing that music. And that's something that I always say, parents, like sometimes when you hear like, oh, but there's going to be a concert in the park, many times, like they have like cultural events. Parents tell me, oh, I don't want to take, my children. That's boring. They're going to make up and sing. And what I will always say is like, no, just be prepared to take your child, your baby into these spaces. What I'm meaning about being prepared is that, yes, most kids' attention span is not going to be an hour. So most likely you will have to be, like quicker, or perhaps you will have to remove yourself earlier. And so that's why I always love like concerts in the park, or concerts, where they were more in a relaxed environment. Always bring a little toy and snacks. And that's something that you can use, any chance. Like that's what I did with both of mine. I wanted them to be exposed to this beautiful music and to the instruments. So they have like a lot of, for example, opera for the family, and they will have the performers with the instruments at the beginning of the session. They will have tickets that were low. They were $5 per person, so they were family friendly. You don't have to worry about like paying $50, $60 for getting in. And now with COVID, this is changing, of course. But my wish is that most families are taking advantage of what's happening. Like the biggest orchestras in the world are having free sessions online on YouTube at this moment. Even the biggest operas, like the Metropolitan, like I catch up, like some of them, like, of course, my kids are not going to sit down for an hour and two, like me, to watch this entire opera, but they will be exposed. They will see, like, wow, how amazing is this cast? How amazing are the costumes? And bottom line, just by seeing all the musicians in love with the instruments, because there's nothing like watching real music being played in front of you. And I have learned so much by being a mom volunteer at a local youth orchestra. By the way, I miss them so, so much because we haven't had any practices since COVID started. And that's something that I'm grieving, because I love seeing young people performing live and loving to play together. And something, that you can give to your children. Like every parent should be able to give to their children, because sadly, not all schools have bands. Not all schools are orchestra. Like here in South Florida, we only have a few schools that are art schools, and a lot of the kids, that somehow sometimes made it. Our kids are, their parents have the money to pay for private tuition. And I say, we need to change that. I'm seriously, appalled that we're robbing so many kids to have this exposure to this music that is so wonderful and is so enriching. I learned so much from people that, didn't have the access, but loved it, and they still went and tried for it. So never give up. Never give up into this journey of music. There are from what Giovanna is saying, especially in her book, and if you go to her profile, she has a link, a direct link where everyone can get her book. I would definitely recommend it if you want to know a little bit more of Giovanna's journey and what she did with her children. But she gives excellent tips of, of how to do it every day, even since they're babies. So, plus she has very, very sweet pictures in her book. So I
including
mean,
my
I just wanted to
grandchildren.
invite her to kind of, like have somebody who already walked the way telling us that it's possible, parents. You can do it. Be encouraged.
And
Yes, sometimes parenting looks like a lot. And then, when we say like, yes, incorporate music, perhaps we'll look at this moment like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do it? But be encouraged, because this should not be a chore. This should be something that both of you, your child and yourself, will enjoy, and something that is so worth it, because the popular music, the pop music is a market. And yes, it's good that our kids know, like many of these popular musicians, but uh, we are robbing them if we're not exposing them to the big composers and other types of music and playing instruments that seriously will give a benefit to their brain cognition and the way they're going to see life in general.
yes, especially that. I am very hopeful, actually.
Oh,
My
I cannot hear you. Like, I don't know if something happened.
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
It's okay. It's very low. I don't know. Something happened.
Oh, mine is on full volume.
Yeah, sometimes that happens, and we have to use headphones. Do you happen to have headphones?
No, I don't have any. No, I'm
Okay, so
sorry.
get closer, a little bit closer to the phone, perhaps,
Okay.
and speak louder.
Okay. Can you hear me? Are you able
It's
to hear
really low, but I don't know.
me? Okay. Let me see if my daughter can help.
Oh, we want to meet your daughter.
Bella? Bella?
So, Bella is her Giovanna's daughter, and she is an amazing viola player. She went to school. She got a scholarship because of her viola skills. And right now she's going into graduate school to teach music, as a teacher. So,
Yes, you.
hi. I
Hi.
was introducing you. Like, I know your mom has always talked about you and how amazing as a musician you are. So I just wanted to let everybody know. Look at her. She is.
That's me.
So I don't know what happened, but the volume got lower. And I was asking your mom if she had like a headphone, some headphones. Sometimes that helps with the volume of the
Yeah, let me.
sound.
Has it improved any? Has it improved any or is it still low?
I guess you will have to speak louder.
So
Okay.
so is that all you can you hear me?
Yes, but sadly I can hear you really low. So I mean, it is what it is. That's how the internet works.
Oh, terrible, terrible. Okay. So what I have wanted to say was that I am truly very hopeful for the future. I see a lot more a lot of activity going on around this country, especially, which in years past I wasn't as hopeful. But the classical music education is growing amongst youth orchestras all over the country. And if you follow music at all, you will see how many kids are actually learning instruments. And there's a greater focus on the African American composers that were ignored for so long, like I said, and as well as female composers who were ignored. I mean, even Felix Mendelssohn, he himself said that Fanny, his sister, was better than him. A greater composer, but she was not supported because she was a woman.
Yes.
Clara Schumann. There's a story about Clara Schumann, Robert Schumann's wife. She was an incredible pianist and composer. She used to go backstage and breastfeed her children during intermissions and come back and play his music.
Wow.
That's a true story. And yet her music was ignored. It is now being played again, and there's an album by one of the Count Masons. They're an amazing siblings, 7 siblings in the UK, who are all unbelievable musicians. They practice in this one house. One of them goes into one bathroom, the other one into the other bathroom, the other one in the kitchen, the other one in the living room, and the cellist Sheku Kane Mason played in Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding. He played the cello.
Wow.
At their wedding. And there are 7 of these siblings, and they all play instruments. So I'm very hopeful that these 1,000 years of music are being promoted more and more. And of course, people are recognizing that all film music is orchestral music. They are
the best music, like Game of Thrones, like now with the Mandalorian.
Yes.
Like all these scores that are so beautiful, it requires an orchestra and people who are very talented to being able to perform it. So I'm such a lover of music in general, good music, and I wanted to have this live to say, parents, music, especially music learning, has an important place in our raising the next generations. It doesn't matter which background or cultural background or social background you're coming from, because right now, every child should be able to, have the exposure to this. And it's something that, I'm very passionate about. I feel that, yes, we are prioritizing so many things at this moment. Like, for example, I will say the already proven benefits for the brain development that music brings to a child. We hear so much about, the attention spans issue, with the ADHD issue, also with autism. And it has been proven over and over again that music is one of those connections. Like, I cannot even, emphasize it more. Like, even people who have Alzheimer's later in life, it has been proven that the only thing that their brain had retained is their knowledge of music.
That's correct.
And you can connect to these people only through music. So if we're having issues, connecting to our children, if we're having issues, emotional issues, trauma issues, there's so many ways that we can explore. And actually, there is a branch of music learning, which is music therapy. I know a few of my friends that have gone to music school that have that as focus on their careers. Music as a therapy, because every type of music has a different, I don't know, energy. Like, believe it or not, there's music that is created to make you feel angry. There's music that is created to make you feel better. So you need to pay attention to those things, especially when you are exposing children to music.
Of course. When you're watching a movie, you can feel the intensity of a scene coming on because of the chosen tones that are used to compose that section of the movie. There's tension, there's tenderness, there's love, there's suspense. You know when the bad guy is going to come through the door because of what the music tells you is going to happen. Music is the greatest language that we have tapped into. And as far as promoting peace, I think it is the greatest peace promoter. When a child learns to play an instrument, that child is going to be a peaceful child. You don't see any trouble from children who play instruments and communicate with their instrument. It is a great way to promote beauty, and peace and harmony. And while the child is also learning, hyper focusing, a great mind and body connection, which is within music. I wanted to say one more thing that I think is really important. I didn't want it to leave me. If you are living anywhere near a university that has a music school, you can go to recitals and concerts for free all year long, because every student has to perform a junior recital, a senior recital, and a doctoral recital if they're going that far. And as long as the child behaves, you just have to get on the mailing list for that university, and you will know when there are recitals taking place. Sometimes they're during the week, and sometimes they're on the weekend. I was very poor most of my life, so I can tell you, my children went to Shakespeare in the Park in the grass, the $2 seats in the back on the grass, but we had a great time.
Yes, that's the way to go. I always, and what you're saying is true, like
yes. And they went to
actually want to mention that, like sadly, a lot of people are not getting advantage of those opportunities. And when they do, I have seen people paying for front seats, and they allow their kids to play in their tablets while there is the presentation. And I think, like, we're talking here about, like, I understand some kids, are having issues with addiction to digital, because, I have 2 children, and we have to, like, understand that this is an issue. But please don't do that. It's highly disruptive, and it's definitely gonna rob from the experience, not only from your perspective, but from the perspective of others in the performance. If you allow your child to play in the tablet while they're playing in the orchestra, or we're watching like a performance, that's a definitely no. Like, if you know that your child needs the tablet, I think that's the issue, like, that's why, I mean, everyone is raising their kids in different ways, everything, but we can vouch personally here. We're talking 2 moms that once you introduce your child to music, many times they are able to sit down and watch a performance. I remember, when many times my kids were babies, after perhaps 15 minutes, they will fall asleep and sleep soundly while the performance. And that's fine.
That's true. I have a cute story for your participants, and this is a true story. I love musicals too. Not just classical music, but I love Fiddler on the Roof. I love the traditions, the Jewish traditions. I love the South Pacific. The first musical that I ever took Bella to, she was 2 years old, was to South Pacific, that I actually paid for those tickets. I was in a better situation when Bella was born, way better than when my other 2 poor daughters were born, when I was really struggling financially. I couldn't rub 2 pennies together, and everything had to be free. Free recitals in universities, free music in the park, free plays. But they didn't know, because children don't know free from expensive. All they know is that you're there with them, sharing something special. But during this particular attendance at South Pacific, I had relatively good seats, and I had raised Bella already singing musicals, so she knew a couple of the songs from South Pacific, which takes place during World War II. I gotta wash that man right out of my hair. That's one really great songs. I sat her down. She had her little hands on her lap, and there was an older woman sitting next to us, and she looked at me and she goes, "Is that kid going to behave?" Sort of like expecting already that my daughter was going to act up because she was only 2 years old. Little did she know that this kid was an expert in music already at 2 years old. And had such a great excitement about music and orchestras, because she had already been exposed, that at intermission, I took her down. I carried her down to the orchestra pit, like I always did at University of Miami when, you know, she went to see free concerts or recitals where I had her meet the pianist. I took her to the orchestra pit. She said hi to, you know, the members of the orchestra. And then I took her back to her seat, and the lady had come back from intermission and sat down. She says, "Oh my God, I am so sorry. I have never seen a child behave so beautifully and so maturely." And I said to her, "Ma'am, you know, you can always be surprised in this world. Always. There's always come a time when no matter how old we are, we can learn something new." She said, you know, so that's my story of my 2-year-old daughter, who was awake for the entire South Pacific and behaved like an adult at the age of 2 because
Yes.
of
So
what her life
I
had
want to
already been.
mention that, like what you say is clearly an example of, like how many of these spaces are not child friendly as well. That's why I always look for the family
Mm-hmm.
performances, because they are created more in mind, with for families and children.
Yes. Yeah.
So many times they're shorter. They have like intermissions where they can do fun stuff. They have
That's
puppets. They
true.
have like ways for the children to interact with the instruments. So like there's so many ways we can
Mm-hmm.
do these, and we want to honor children, bottom line, because by the time they're teenagers is not the same. And sadly, because by the time they're teenagers, they want to be with their peers, and like a lot of peers, a lot of teenagers nowadays, is not something that would be necessarily interesting, if they have never been exposed themselves. So, this plea is to say,
But the
we need
beauty,
to start when they're babies.
right?
There's nothing
Correct.
wrong, to have a child to go to a performance. And yes, we're gonna have these people saying, "Oh, why did you bring this baby?" And why? But hey, I've seen adults behave even worse
Mm-hmm.
than children.
And if the baby does not behave well for whatever reason, you just get up and you leave, or you get up and you go
Yes,
to the
and
back. That
you
is not a problem.
always come prepared, because that's what
Right.
happens.
That's what
Child
happened.
has their
Some,
needs, and
yes.
like that's why I always will come prepared. I will always bring my snacks. I will always bring a toy. One thing that I always love to do with my children also is like playing with them and touching them gently, in the, going with the music. So, like some of the musics we already know, and, like we will, like do these or move them, and they will enjoy it. Like babies will totally enjoy it. And you see how engaged they will be with musical performances if you do it that way. But like the same with language learning, children need to see their parents getting excited and
Correct.
interested themselves. Like you cannot pretend that a child will be doing that by themselves. Like I hear a lot of parents like, "Oh, I want my child to learn Spanish, but I don't want to, I don't know how to speak Spanish, or I'm not interested." And I'm always saying, well, that's going to be a little bit harder, because the parent also needs to get involved, needs to be engaged in the learning process, because
And
that is
children
a head
count on
start
us.
for the child. Even
They
though I don't know how to play violin, but I was
correct.
always
Correct.
engaged into the learning process. I was always supporting, like her, like going to see other violinists. And like I say, children, especially little kids, love to see other kids performing.
Yes.
And
They do.
if you have the opportunity, go and do it. Like it's like there's so many academies of music. In the internet, there's so many wonderful young musicians that are always performing. There is a wonderful NPR program. It's called From the Top.
Yes, I listen to it on Sundays. It's
I
so great.
love it because they're
And that's
always,
that
like
exactly.
showcasing young performers,
Yes.
different styles of music, and there's so many things that we can do. Before, because this is going really fast. First of all, I quiero hablar un poco en español porque mi amiga Giovanna, ella también es bilingüe y quería, o sea, hablar con los padres que están viendo esto, que de repente no hablan inglés. Estamos hablando de la importancia de exponer a nuestros hijos desde pequeñitos a la música, especialmente a las músicas clásicas mundiales, porque eso tiene un valor inmenso en la vida de ellos. Estábamos hablando del libro que Giovanna escribió contando acerca de su historia, de ella criando sus tres hijas amantes de la música y cómo es que ella habla de todo eso, cómo ayudar a los padres para que también ellos lo hagan en su hogar, que es posible que no se den por vencidos. Entonces, no sé si tú querías compartir algo en español, Giovanna.
Sí, la importancia de la música no tiene, no, es que es un tema tan poderoso. La música es, si podemos aislar una cosa en la vida que tiene más poder, eh, 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 secundario solamente al amor de una madre, es exponer a nuestros hijos a la música, porque la música lo comunica todo, todos los sentimientos y a la misma vez comunica ciencia y matemática y los cuentos del pasado, las historias del mundo entero están incorporadas en la música. Y desde que los niños son pequeñitos, son esponjas, ellos lo absorben todo. Y es tan importante de llevarle la música a los niños cuando son pequeñitos, porque esa es la fundación que ellos van a tener cuando sean mayores y nadie los va a poder corromper, porque ya tienen eso adentro, esa música que ellos tienen. Yo no me preocupo por mis hijas, porque desde que ellas eran pequeñitas, ya ellas eran habían compartido eso conmigo, el piano, el violín, la música clásica, la música de Cuba, la música de Perú, la música de España, que es de donde vienen mis antecedentes, y toda esa música, la música gitana, el flamenco, toda esa música, ya ellas la tenían adentro. Y yo estoy convencida que esa influencia, y además de ellos haber estudiado instrumentos, que ellas mismas pudieron crear música, pudieron estudiar esa música. Yo estaba tan tranquila toda mi vida y todavía lo estoy, de que nadie ni nada pudiera corrompir a mis hijas, porque ellas tenían esa fundación adentro. Si les puedo dejar con algo, es con eso, que el niño que estudia música, el niño que se ha expuesto a 1000 años de música clásica, nadie les va a poder quitar eso y ellos van a moverse en el futuro con una arma que los va a endurecer contra todo lo maligno, si lo puedo explicar así de esa manera. Es una cosa
Muchas
muy
gracias,
maravillosa.
Giovanna. So this is gonna be recorded. I'm gonna upload it later on our YouTube channel, Bilingual channel, Mama Tortuga Bilingual channel, our YouTube. I like it there because we can have subtitles. So as you know, so we wanted before the whole thing ends, we are in the season of a holiday season, and we need to talk about music for the holidays. It's like a must, at least at my house. We call it villancicos. I don't let go past one Christmas. At least that's what we celebrate in our home. I don't let it go past without singing all our beloved villancicos. So you were telling me about special songs for the holidays for you.
One of my favorite carols that I play on the piano is the Carol of the Bells. I love it. But I pulled this out. This is so old, but I wanted you guys to see. I actually made this. It's a velvet cover with a decoration on it, and I put a gold cord. Back in 2007, when my daughter was she was in elementary school at the time, at the end of her elementary school years, um, she wanted to be part of the Christmas show, and everyone knew that she played piano and violin. My husband plays guitar in addition to me playing piano, so I employed him to accompany us. And I researched the oldest, or what is known to be the oldest Christmas carol ever written. God Rest Ye Gentlemen, it's called. It supposedly has an anonymous composer. I couldn't find who wrote it. But it's a very well-known Christmas carol, and we performed it together on stage with my husband playing the guitar. We dressed up in period costumes as much as I could come up with, like a couple of girls from the Dickens classic A Christmas Carol. Even though this song is even much older than that, it's probably as far as the 12th or 13th century. That's how old it is. They estimate. But
Wow.
that's a really interesting thing that I did. That I participated with my daughter during the Christmas holiday, and we've never forgotten it. And I've saved it all this time because it was a really special day, and we have it on video
Yeah,
somewhere.
and actually that's the same at my home. Like I always tell both of my kids, if you want to give me something for this season, I want to see a performance. Both of them, like this year, my son was playing the piano for a few years, and this year he wants to play the drums. Like suddenly now he's changing to another instrument. That's another plus effect of learning an instrument, by the
Mhm.
way.
Yes,
That
yes,
once a child learn an instrument, they can jump to many instruments throughout their
that's
lives.
correct.
Actually, many musicians play one, two, three instruments very proficiently because once you learn it, it's a language.
I know.
It's the beauty of the
Believe
music.
it or not, at this age, I want to learn the cello. It's been a dream of mine to play the Bach cello suites on a cello, but oh my gosh, I have so many things that I want to do, and sometimes life feels like it's slipping away from you. The years go
But
faster and faster.
that's what it is. It's a life learning,
Yes, yes.
loving affair. I wanted to mention that you said like you are married now. And that's one of the points, like Giovanna raised her daughters when she was, hardworking as a policewoman, and by herself. And then later on in life, she met somebody, and she, ended up raising two of her kids. Uh,
Actually,
yeah,
one.
isn't it?
No, just
Oh,
one.
one of her
Just
kids with
part of the
her
time.
actual husband. So
Yes,
that's something that, like we never know what life has in store for us.
that's correct.
Like our situations can be very, like individual, but it's an encouragement of seeing, I love to see and talk to you, Giovanna, like always, because I feel so encouraged every time that I speak to you about, how amazing are your kids and how much you persevere in giving them your love through music. And
Well,
that's something that encourages me as well as a mother.
the
Thank
most
you so
important,
much.
as you're very welcome, and thank you as well. When we have children, the most important thing is to commit to them, because we are putting new people out there in the world, and we want them to make the world a better place. That is the only reason to have children, to help them, regardless of their likes, of what they're like, of what their personalities are like, of what their inclinations are. if we love them and we give them consistency, they will help make the world a better place. That is the reason for everything in life. And we need to leave a legacy of great children who love each other and who promote goodness in the world and peace in the world. That's what we need. And
Yes,
that has
and
been my
music is one of those tools.
one
Let
of
us
the
not
most powerful.
forget. Let us not forget that music is not here just for popularity or for making money, or people think like it's just, no, music is here because it was a gift to us. So I'm so glad. I wanted to remind everyone who wants to get a copy of her book. Remember, this is a self-published book that Giovanna lovingly put together. So you can find the link on her profile. Can you remind us? I will definitely put it on my links too. Hopefully, but
It's
if
for sale.
anybody has any questions, please send me a DM. Like,
Sure.
that's fine. I will send you the link. I think this book can be very helpful for many, many families. It can be a gift for this season if you have somebody who's raising their children and you want to encourage them. Because above all, it's not telling people what to do, it's encouraging them to do their best when we know we can do the best.
Thank you so much. It's a very easy read. You can keep it in your purse. It's just little tips. All I tried to do was to write down those little things that I did, really small things, but that I think that really made all the difference in my children turning out the way they turned out. Like I said, I don't think it was an accident. I think God was with me for sure. I say that every day because it was my faith in God that also gave me the strength every day to keep doing what I was doing. But it turns out that all those little things that I decided to do really made a difference in the lives of my children. So I wanted to share that and put it out there before anything else that I am working on. I wanted to put that book, and that's why I put the little book out first. So
Thank you,
thank you so much.
Giovanna, and thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure.
Hopefully, like a lot of people will, have the chance to read the book.
Thank you
So
so much.
happy holidays for
Happy holidays,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye. Oh, I don't know.